What is the personal unconscious? Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine an iceberg. Above the surface, the bright tip glistening in the sun. That's your conscious mind, the thoughts you notice, the decisions you believe you're making. But beneath the waves, hidden in the cold darkness, lies something far larger. Memories you've forgotten, desires you deny, fears you never face. This is the personal unconscious. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, gave us this image. He said, "The personal unconscious contains lost memories, painful ideas that are repressed, subliminal perceptions, and forgotten impressions." But let's not get lost in academic definitions. Let's make this real. Think of the last time you met someone new. Maybe a stranger on the train, a colleague at work, or someone at a party. Within seconds you felt something. Trust, distrust, attraction, annoyance. You didn't sit there calculating their face symmetry, their tone of voice, their micro-gestures. The judgment arrived instantly, automatically. That was your unconscious speaking. It sifted through thousands of past encounters, smells, memories of childhood, associations buried deep in your brain, and whispered to you before your conscious mind had a chance to catch up. Modern neuroscience confirms this. We know that nearly 95% of brain activity happens outside conscious awareness. The hippocampus tucks away episodic memories. The amygdala encodes fear and emotional responses. The basal ganglia automates habits. How you tie your shoes, drive a car, or flinch when someone raises their hand too quickly. You don't have to think about these things. In fact, you can't. They're handled for you. Your conscious mind, the part that feels in control, is more like the CEO of a massive company. It gives speeches, takes credit for decisions, but in reality, most of the real work is being done behind the scenes by the employees you never meet. So let me ask you, who's really in charge? Is it the you, watching this video right now, or the vast unconscious intelligence humming beneath awareness? If you've ever said, "I don't know why I did that," or "something just came over me," you've heard the voice of your unconscious. Jung divided the psyche into 3 layers: the conscious mind, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. The conscious mind, what you notice, what you focus on right now. The personal unconscious, everything uniquely yours, forgotten memories, hidden fears, old wounds. The collective unconscious, deeper still, the inherited myths, archetypes, and universal patterns we all share as humans. Today, we'll stay in the second layer, the personal unconscious. It's the bridge between your daily awareness and the mythic world of archetypes. It's where your dreams draw their images from, where your gut feelings come from, where your suppressed emotions linger until they find a way to break through. Ancient traditions had their own language for this. The Greeks spoke of the underworld, a place where the dead live, but also where wisdom lies hidden. Egyptians weighed the heart against a feather in the afterlife, testing what had been buried in the soul. Buddhists meditate to watch thoughts arise from nowhere, to notice the unconscious bubbling into consciousness. All these traditions point to one truth: what lies beneath awareness shapes everything above it. Let's make this concrete. Imagine a child who grows up with a parent who criticizes them constantly. As an adult, they may not remember every scolding. But in their unconscious lies a silent script: I am not enough. Now, whenever they get feedback at work, or someone raises an eyebrow, the old wound stirs. They feel shame or anger before they even understand why. That's the personal unconscious in action. It's not abstract. It's alive, here and now, in every reaction, every habit, every hidden bias. So take a breath. Think of a recurring reaction you have. Maybe you shut down during conflict. Maybe you procrastinate. Maybe you always pick the same type of partner. Ask yourself, when did I first feel this? Whose voice does it resemble? Don't force an answer, just watch what memory surfaces. That's a doorway into your unconscious. Neuroscientists describe something similar. They call it priming. Show someone a fearful face for just milliseconds. so fast they don't consciously register it, and their amygdala still lights up. Their heart rate still shifts. The unconscious saw what the conscious mind missed. Or take implicit bias tests. People who consciously believe in equality still show hidden preferences when forced to make split-second choices. Why? Because the unconscious holds on to old cultural imprints long after the conscious mind has moved on. So when Jung spoke of the personal unconscious, he wasn't just talking about a dusty storage room for old memories. He was pointing to the hidden operating system of your life. The unconscious is always speaking, to your body, through your habits, in your slips of the tongue, in the people you're drawn to or repelled by. To live unconsciously is to be ruled by forces you don't see. To live consciously is to turn toward them, to bring light into that basement, and to reclaim the parts of yourself you've left behind. Part 2. The Shadow, Our Hidden Face. In the last chapter we explored the personal unconscious, that vast basement of memories and hidden patterns. But not everything buried there is neutral. Some of it is uncomfortable. Some of it you don't want to admit even to yourself. Jung called this the shadow. The shadow is the side of you that you deny, repress, or project onto others. It's the anger you suppress, the envy you mask, the desires you label unacceptable. But here's the paradox. The shadow isn't just negative. It also contains your unlived potential. The creativity, the power, the courage you've locked away. Every culture has a story about the shadow. In Greek mythology, heroes descend into the underworld. Odysseus travels to Hades. Orpheus risks everything to retrieve his beloved. These journeys weren't just about the dead, they symbolized the descent into our own hidden darkness. In Christianity, the devil often embodies the denied parts of humanity: temptation, aggression, desire. In Buddhism, the demon Mara distracts the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, testing him with fear and craving. All of these myths reflect a universal truth. To grow, we must face the parts of ourselves we'd rather avoid. Jung wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." What does this mean? Imagine someone who prides themselves on always being kind. They repress their anger. But instead of disappearing, that anger leaks out as passive aggression, sarcasm, or sudden explosions. Or picture someone who denies their vulnerability. They put on a mask of toughness, but deep down, they're terrified of intimacy. The shadow doesn't vanish, it waits. And when ignored, it controls you from behind the scenes. One of the most common ways we encounter our shadow is through projection. Have you noticed how certain people trigger you instantly? Maybe their arrogance infuriates you, or their laziness, or their greed. Often that intensity comes from projection. Something in them reflects a part of you that you've disowned. You don't want to see it in yourself, so you see it magnified in them. It's like your unconscious holds up a mirror, but instead of recognizing yourself, you point at the other person and say, "That's the problem." Neuroscience gives us a lens into this process. Studies show that suppressing emotions doesn't erase them, it amplifies them. When you try to push down anger, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, fires even more intensely. Stress hormones surge. Your body carries what the mind rejects. Psychologists also find that unconscious biases often reveal projections. People who publicly condemn certain traits sometimes act them out privately. The conscious mind denies, but the unconscious keeps score. Think of the public figure who campaigns loudly against corruption but is secretly corrupt. Or the celebrity who denounces indulgence but hides a secret addiction. These aren't just hypocrisies, they're shadow dynamics. So before we judge too quickly, let's turn the mirror back on ourselves. Where do you see this pattern in your own life? Where might your strongest judgments of others be a reflection of something unowned within you? Let's try something simple. Grab a notebook. Write down 3 qualities in other people that annoy you most. Don't hold back, be honest. Maybe it's arrogance. Maybe it's selfishness. Maybe it's weakness. Now ask yourself, where does this quality live in me? When have I acted like this, even in small ways? This is shadow work. Not to shame yourself, but to reclaim what you've denied. Because once you acknowledge it, the shadow loses its grip. But here's the twist. The shadow isn't only dark. Jung said the shadow also contains golden potential. Maybe you repress anger, but along with it, you repress your assertiveness. Maybe you hide your envy, but with it, you bury your ambition. Every shadow has a light side waiting to be integrated. The anger you fear may become your courage. The envy you deny may become your drive. The vulnerability you avoid may become your capacity for love. This is why myths always end with treasure in the underworld. Odysseus returns with wisdom. Orpheus brings music. The hero who faces the dragon emerges not empty-handed, but transformed. Your shadow is your dragon, and behind it, in the darkness, lies the treasure of wholeness. So the shadow isn't something to eliminate. It's something to meet. To say, yes, this too is me. When you integrate your shadow, you stop being controlled by it. You become less judgmental, more authentic, and paradoxically, more free. Part 3. Dreams. Messages from the depths. Every night, without fail, we fall into another world. A world where logic bends, time dissolves, and symbols dance in strange patterns. We call it dreaming. For many people, dreams are dismissed as random nonsense. Just the brain cleaning house. But Carl Jung disagreed. For him, dreams were the royal road to the unconscious. A message, coded in images, from the parts of ourselves we cannot yet see. Jung believed that dreams are not meaningless. They are attempts by the unconscious to balance the conscious mind. If by day you are rigid and controlling, your dreams may bring chaos. If by day you ignore your fears, your dreams may terrify you with monsters. In his words, the dream is a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul. Each dream is like a letter addressed to you, written in a symbolic language. The question is, will you open it? Jung once worked with a young woman who resisted therapy. She was brilliant but overly rational, dismissing anything emotional or intuitive. One day she told him a dream. She was given a golden scarab, a jewel of transformation. At that very moment in Jung's office, a scarab beetle tapped against the window. He opened it, caught the beetle, and handed it to her. The synchronicity shocked her. The dream, and its literal echo, broke through her rigid thinking. She realized something deeper was at play. That moment opened the door to her healing. Dreams can do that. They can break the spell of your conscious defenses and remind you that your psyche is larger than your rational plans. Now let's shift into neuroscience. What actually happens in the brain when you dream? Most vivid dreams occur in REM sleep, rapid eye movement, when the brain is almost as active as when you're awake. The amygdala, which processes emotions, lights up. The hippocampus works to integrate memories. The prefrontal cortex, the logical planner, actually goes offline. This combination explains the dream world. Highly emotional, deeply memorable, but illogical. Your brain is literally trying to integrate the emotional residue of your day into your memory networks. So yes, dreams help the brain clean house. But they also create meaning, weaving the fragments of your life into a story. Jung saw dreams as a symbolic theater. If you dream of a house, it may represent your psyche. If you dream of a shadowy figure, it may be your own shadow. A snake might be fear, or transformation. These aren't one-size-fits-all symbols. Jung warned against dream dictionaries. Instead, he asked, what does this image mean to you? Because the unconscious speaks in your personal language, drawn from your own experiences and culture. At the same time, certain archetypal patterns do repeat: the wise old man, the child, the shadow, the journey. These are universal forms, appearing in myths and dreams across time. Long before neuroscience, cultures honored dreams as sacred. The ancient Greeks built temples to Asclepius, the god of healing. People would sleep inside, waiting for dreams that offered cures. In many indigenous traditions, dreams are portals to guidance. The Ojibwe speak of dreams as gifts from the spirit world. Aboriginal Australians describe the dream time as the origin of all creation. For these traditions, dreams weren't random, they were maps for living. History gives us examples too. The chemist Auguste Kekulé dreamed of a snake biting its own tail, and from that image, he discovered the ring structure of benzene. Paul McCartney heard the melody of yesterday in a dream. Countless inventions, songs, and works of art began as dream fragments. The unconscious is not just rehashing your day, it's a wellspring of creativity, problem-solving, and insight. So how do we work with our dreams? The simplest method: keep a dream journal. Place a notebook by your bed. The moment you wake up, write whatever you remember, even fragments. Over time, your recall improves. Then, reflect. Ask, what emotions did I feel? What symbols appeared? Where have I seen these symbols before in my life? What part of me might be speaking through this dream? Don't rush to interpret. Let the images speak slowly. Sometimes meaning unfolds over weeks. Let's pause. Close your eyes. Think of your last dream, maybe from last night, maybe from weeks ago. Don't analyze, just notice. What was the strongest image? A place, a person, an object? Now gently ask, if this image could speak, what would it tell me? That's the beginning of dialogue with your unconscious. When you pay attention to your dreams, something shifts. Patterns emerge, themes repeat. Your unconscious begins to feel heard. And slowly, the divide between waking and dreaming dissolves. You start to notice dreamlike symbols in daily life. You catch synchronicities, moments that feel charged with meaning. This is individuation in practice, the conscious and unconscious beginning to converse. Part 4. Ancient Wisdom and the Unconscious. So far, we've looked at the unconscious through Jung's psychology and through neuroscience. But what if I told you that thousands of years before these sciences existed, ancient traditions were already mapping the same territory? They didn't use brain scans or psychological terms. Instead, they used myth, ritual, meditation, and story. Yet the wisdom is strikingly similar. The ancients knew what lies beneath awareness shapes everything above it. Let's begin in ancient Greece. Carved into the temple of Apollo at Delphi were two simple words: know thyself. The Oracle of Delphi wasn't just about predicting the future, it was about confronting the hidden self. Visitors sought visions and riddles that forced them to face what they already carried within. For Jung, this was individuation. For neuroscience, this is metacognition, the brain becoming aware of its own processes. 2,000 years apart but pointing to the same human quest. Travel now to ancient Egypt. In the Book of the Dead, the soul is judged by weighing the heart against a feather. If your heart is heavy, with lies, repression, unresolved shadows, it cannot pass. This isn't just about the afterlife, it's a psychological truth. The unconscious holds every denial, every wound. Unless faced, these weigh us down in life. The Egyptians understood. To live freely, one must make peace with the hidden. Now to India, to the teachings of the Buddha. Meditation is in essence a practice of observing the unconscious. Sit quietly and watch what arises. Thoughts, memories, emotions, drifting in and out. Modern neuroscience calls this the default mode network, the brain's background chatter. Meditation reduces activity in this network, allowing unconscious patterns to surface and dissolve. What ancient monks discovered through silence, neuroscientists now measure with functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI. Across the world, indigenous cultures honored dreams and visions. Among the Ojibwe, vision quests sent young people into solitude to meet their guiding spirit in dream or trance. Aboriginal Australians spoke of the dream time, where ancestors still live, and where one can access wisdom beyond ordinary perception. Notice the common pattern: descent and return. The Greek hero enters the underworld. The Egyptian soul journeys through judgment. The Buddhist meditator descends into silence. The indigenous seeker enters dream or trance. All return with wisdom. All point to the same truth. The path to wholeness requires facing the hidden self. And today, neuroscience validates what these traditions intuited. Meditation rewires the brain, lowering stress, strengthening attention, reshaping emotional regulation. Breathwork alters autonomic rhythms, shifting unconscious patterns of fear. Ritual engages the limbic system, creating deep emotional encoding. What the ancients practiced through temples and myths, science now measures in neural circuits and hormones. Let's try a simple practice that bridges ancient and modern. Close your eyes. Take 3 slow breaths. Now, imagine yourself sitting before a wise guide. It could be a figure from myth, an ancestor, or simply a presence. Ask silently, what do I need to know from my unconscious right now? Then, listen. Don't force it. Notice what image or word arises. This is a modernized version of what countless cultures did, inviting the hidden self to speak through symbol, silence, and imagination. Jung himself was fascinated by these parallels. He saw myths and religious rituals not as primitive superstition, but as symbolic maps of the unconscious. He once said, "The symbols of religion are so deeply embedded in the human unconscious that they can never be eradicated." For him, the gods and spirits of old were archetypes, timeless forces living in the human psyche. Modern science now confirms what wisdom traditions always whispered. The unconscious is not a void but a reservoir of memory, of trauma, of creativity, of spirit. And in bridging these worlds, ancient myth and modern neuroscience, we gain a fuller picture of ourselves. Part 5. The Neuroscience of Habits and Emotions. So far, we've traveled through myth, psychology, and dreams, but the unconscious isn't only found in symbols and stories. It also lives in your everyday life, in the small, automatic things you do without thinking. The way you reach for your phone the moment you wake up, the way you react when someone criticizes you, the way you eat when you're stressed, or the way your voice tightens when you feel afraid. These patterns aren't random, they're habits. They're emotions encoded in your nervous system, and neuroscience shows us how powerfully these unconscious loops run your life. Let's start with habits. Neuroscientists describe habits as unconscious programs. They form because the brain is efficient. Instead of deciding from scratch how to brush your teeth every morning, the brain automates it. At the center of this system is the basal ganglia, a cluster of neurons deep in the brain. Whenever you repeat a behavior often enough, the basal ganglia turns it into a routine. Think of it like this. Every habit has 3 parts: a cue, a routine, and a reward. Hear your phone buzz, cue. Check the screen, routine. Get a hit of dopamine, reward. Do it enough times, and it becomes automatic. This loop is the secret to why habits feel so unconscious. You may not even notice the cue, but your brain is already primed. Walk into your kitchen, smell coffee, and your body prepares to brew a cup before you've even thought about it. Now imagine this happening not just with coffee, but with anger, procrastination, or avoidance. Your brain has encoded emotional habits the same way it encodes physical ones. This brings us to emotions. The amygdala, often called the brain's fear center, stores emotional memories. If as a child you were bitten by a dog, your amygdala remembers. Years later, just seeing a barking dog may trigger fear before you can explain why. The hippocampus provides context. It says, "This is a new dog, not the one from childhood." But when trauma is strong, the amygdala can overpower the hippocampus. The body reacts as if the danger is happening now. This is why trauma feels timeless. It bypasses conscious thought and erupts straight from the unconscious body. Psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk put it simply, the body keeps the score. Your conscious mind may say, "I'm fine," but your unconscious body still flinches, tenses, avoids. Emotional habits are embedded not just in the brain, but in your nervous system, your muscles, your breath. This is why healing isn't just intellectual, it must involve the body as well. Take the example of addiction. On the surface, addiction looks like a choice, but underneath, it's an unconscious loop. Stress, cue. Drink or drug, routine. Temporary relief, reward. Over time, the loop ingrains itself in the brain's dopamine circuits. This doesn't mean change is impossible. It means change requires working with the unconscious loop, not just against it. So how do we change unconscious patterns? Neuroscience offers several tools. Mindfulness, becoming aware of the cue before the routine fires. Studies show mindfulness weakens the automatic link between trigger and reaction. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, challenging the unconscious belief that fuels the loop. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Reprocessing traumatic memories so the amygdala no longer hijacks the body. Journaling, pulling unconscious emotions into conscious reflection. Breathwork and somatic practices, calming the nervous system so the body no longer carries trauma alone. Each of these methods takes what was hidden and brings it into awareness. Let's try an experiment right now. Think of one habit you'd like to change. Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's late night scrolling. Maybe it's losing your temper. Ask yourself, what's the cue? What triggers it? What's the routine? The action I take automatically. What's the reward? What do I actually get from this? Relief? Escape? A burst of pleasure? Write it down. Just by mapping it, you've taken something unconscious and made it conscious. And that's the first step to change. Notice how this connects back to Jung. Our shadow often lives inside our habits. The parts we deny sneak out as unconscious patterns. Neuroscience gives us the mechanism, Jung gives us the meaning. Together, they show us that every habit is a message from the unconscious waiting to be understood. And here's the hopeful part. The brain is plastic. Neuroplasticity means habits and emotional patterns can be rewired at any age. It takes awareness, repetition, and compassion. But no unconscious loop is destiny. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Neuroscience now adds, with awareness, you can literally reshape your brain. Part 6. Integrating the unconscious. We've descended into the unconscious, through Jung's insights, through myths and dreams, through neuroscience and ancient wisdom. We've seen shadows, habits, emotions, and forgotten memories. But now comes the most important question. How do we bring it all together? How do we integrate the unconscious into daily life? Because the goal isn't to destroy the unconscious. It isn't to eliminate your shadow or to silence your dreams. The goal is integration, wholeness, what Jung called individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are, not just the mask you show the world, not just the fragments of personality you identify with, but the full, integrated self. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Integration means turning toward your shadows, your wounds, your hidden impulses and saying, "Yes, this too is me." When you do that, what once controlled you from the dark becomes a source of energy, creativity, and authenticity. Neuroscience gives us the mechanism. Each time you bring awareness to an unconscious pattern, you create new neural connections. The prefrontal cortex, the conscious reflective part of the brain, learns to regulate the amygdala's automatic reactions. Mindfulness rewires fear loops. Journaling links memory networks. Therapy helps reframe old scripts. This is neuroplasticity in action. The brain is not fixed. The unconscious is not a prison. Integration is possible. Biologically, psychologically, spiritually. Take anger, for example. If you repress it, it leaks out as passive aggression. If you indulge it blindly, it destroys relationships. But if you integrate it, you can use it as a force for assertiveness, justice, boundary setting. The same goes for envy. It can poison you, or, when integrated, fuel your ambition. Fear can paralyze you, or, when integrated, guide you to prepare and protect. Integration transforms raw, unconscious energy into conscious strength. Ancient traditions spoke of this too. Alchemists called it the union of opposites, the marriage of sun and moon, gold born from lead. Taoists described it as yin and yang, shadow and light completing each other. So, how do we practice integration in modern life? Here are a few pathways. Shadow work. Notice what triggers you in others. Instead of judging, ask, where does this live in me? Dream work. Record your dreams. Reflect on the symbols. Ask, what part of me is speaking here? Mindfulness. Practice observing thoughts and emotions without judgment. This weakens unconscious loops. Journaling. Write freely. Let the unconscious speak without censoring. Therapy and dialogue. Safe relationships allow unconscious material to surface and be understood. Creative expression. Art, music, storytelling, all give form to unconscious content. Integration doesn't happen overnight. It's a lifelong practice of listening, noticing, and bringing what's hidden into the light. History is full of people who found strength in integration. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, could have returned consumed by bitterness. Instead, by integrating his shadow and pain, he emerged with a vision of reconciliation. Artists too, from Frida Kahlo painting her pain, to Maya Angelou transforming trauma into poetry, show us that integration turns wounds into wisdom. Integration isn't about perfection, it's about wholeness. When you integrate your unconscious, you become less controlled by old patterns. You act with more freedom, more compassion, more authenticity. You stop running from yourself, and you begin to live as your full self. As Jung said, I'd rather be whole than good. Wholeness means embracing your contradictions, your shadows, your light, your history, your potential. It means becoming who you already are. We've traveled a long way together, from Jung's vision of the personal unconscious to the mysteries of dreams and archetypes, from ancient wisdom traditions to modern neuroscience, from shadow work to habits and emotions to the integration of the self. Again and again the message repeats, what you ignore controls you. What you face transforms you. Every time you make the unconscious conscious, you reclaim a piece of yourself, and step by step, piece by piece, you become whole. Now write your own way. May you walk it with courage. May you walk it with curiosity, and may you walk it with the wholeness. Don't forget to subscribe for more, and share your story in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. See you next time. On my way.